Good afternoon and welcome to UnitedTV. It's our 2 p.m. session. Because of the clinical presentation we had at 3 p.m. We look a little bit orangish. It has nothing to do with Trump.
It's a lot of carrots.
It's our new studio. The lighting is not perfect, but we're trying different things to make it happen. Maybe while we're doing this, people who are listening from the other side, they can bring one of the lights in my room, either Zal or Alp, but I'm sure they are listening, so they will hear us. So, but other than our little bit tannish color, we have a new studio in our new office. We are on 800 Delaware Avenue in Wilmington, Delaware. So it's a new journey for us. So a lot of people put a lot of efforts during this move. I do appreciate their help and their support. Now, today is our session with no guest. So we are going to be able to go through some of our topics that we have.
So this is, as you mentioned, our first session here in the new studio. Also one of our first sessions in a little while because you're actually out of the country traveling recently. So the topics we have today, we're going to try to touch a little bit on BRICS, a little bit of news on Medicare, and what's going on there with some of the actual legal issues with regarding payments to Medicare. Also touch on the election updates. But before we get into any of that, if you want to mention how your trip was to Turkey, what's going on there, any updates?
Sure. Trip was good. So this is something that I try to do every 3 months. Our office in Turkey, we have about little over 60 employees there. Now, with the new reality today, with Zoom and other digital communication, we actually don't feel like, well, you are also part of those daily meetings. So we are meeting with our Turkey office every day.
Yeah.
And I have another one on a daily basis. So there are 2 teams that I'm meeting. But it's different when I'm there in person. So being able to provide a little bit more training, a little bit more support, and also getting to know them. I think those are all important for us. So the only thing this time I wasn't able to do, which there's always some silver lining. Anything bad happens to me, I know that there's some good stuff that's going to happen in return because we put a lot of effort. We wanted to do the Turkish session for this channel, and we did 2 of them in the past. So the third one is going to be about stray animals. It's a huge problem in Turkey. You know, it's kind of there are good parts and bad parts. So the good thing is I did a lot of impression from like social media posts if it's in Turkish in Turkey. So we do the same thing here. It's not the same. Anything related to US doesn't get much. You would think that us being like 3-4 times bigger than Turkey in population, we would get more impression, but it doesn't happen. So, and I took a little bit of advantage of that. So we posted our opinion about what they should be doing. Now, I'm a qualified person to do that because I'm on the board of one of the animal hospitals in Delaware and PA, Brandywine Valley, SPCA.
Right.
So, and it's been a while, and we took over another shelter in Harrisburg. the process works. Our shelter is a no-kill shelter, and that was the reason that I choose to be on. Otherwise, I wouldn't probably serve on the board. I will still support them. But in Turkey, discussion of course, just like anything else, it goes to politics. One side is supporting one thing, so the other side automatically supports something else. Everyone actually has responsibilities. One is individual level, people like us, individual level, we have responsibilities. But it seems like there's this culture of, well, everything should be coming from the government or the local government, whatever it is. So,
Somebody else.
well, what do you do as a person? Like to clean up in front of your own house, you're not doing it, but then you're expecting government to clean up the entire neighborhood.
Right.
That's a problem. So that's a huge problem, and that's what we have. Unfortunately, one of the issues. Now, why I'm telling you this is because I wasn't able to do the session, as you know.
Yeah.
Because that legislation didn't actually come through. It was going to be last Tuesday, and we talked to a couple people, and they didn't want to be on until
Afterwards.
the ruling party kind of put their own position. I talked to one of the parliamentarians there, and she's very knowledgeable. We may work with her in the future. So the thing is, there's a problem, so they have to really take care of it. I don't feel like my mom should be alone walking on the road. It's like 2 blocks. Like she can't really
Pack
do that.
dogs or something.
There's like I had like I mean, you know this, and you got a new dog, and someone who's been working with me almost 3 years. You know what it means for me. My animals are like my kids. So, but even if I tell you that there's a problem and it should be taken care of, they should be trained. So either in shelters or other places, individuals should adopt more. All those. Now, you are going to ask me what the silver lining is. So as this didn't happen, but I didn't stop trying. Then I didn't want to just do it without someone who's kind of interested in the party, in the topic.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to name him just now, because if it doesn't happen, then
I don't want to jinx it.
right. So one of my extended friends, because I've been talking to him for the last 3 years. I don't know who he is, but he is willing to be on. He's actually very knowledgeable on this. He lived in Germany, and now he lives in Turkey, so he can actually have the Western perspective of the issue, on the issue, as well as understanding the culture. So I think he's going to be with us.
Fingers crossed, for the future.
So, and it would be great if we are able to get him. So that's the Turkey.
Well, it sounds like I'm not sure if Turkey has like a daytime programming TV show similar to The Price is Right, but if you're familiar with that, The Price is Right here in the US is like the game show where at the end of every episode, the host Drew Carey, or used to be Bob Barker back in the day, always say, make sure you get your pet spayed and neutered, help control the pet population. So obviously it's responsible for those who do have pets. You're going to spay them, neuter them. That way,
the other thing that when the dog, especially when cats are, I'm not a big fan, right? So, but still, you should have the same. But dogs, if they don't have the owners, someone who's providing them daily care, they are miserable. I mean, they're not wild animals, so they're domestic.
Yeah.
So now, I can imagine, God forbid, I can imagine something happens to Joshua and then he's on his own on the street. He wouldn't know what to do. But the most important part that he would miss is the interaction that he has with me.
Yeah, the companionship.
Right. So otherwise, no animals should be on the streets without the ownership. Those people who are loving them so much that they want to keep them on the streets, they should just adopt them and then keep them in their homes.
Right.
So that's the best way to show that you are an animal lover. That's not a good way to tell me that, they should still live there because I love them. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
So that's a fake love. So then run away from that.
Exactly.
So before we go into too much,
We'll have
emotions
the
in
whole
this,
pet session
it
right
makes me
now.
so upset. Like
I-
stupidity. I have like really bad allergies to stupidity, and it makes me upset when people don't listen, don't learn, don't understand, and have opinions without any knowledge. So that's just
Right.
stupidity.
Definitely need to have light shed on that situation and obviously take progress in the right direction. So actually, kind of transition to our topic here with some of the other global issues regarding like BRICS. So let's see if we have our video loaded up here. And specifically, Turkey is actually a talking point here with our BRICS update on how they're actually potentially going to be joining at least that application in talks. President Erdogan and Putin, it looks like in some of the slides here, you'll see. And I think, coincidentally, Turkey is actually playing a big role in a lot of these things that we talk about, whether it's the war, the financial, economic with BRICS, the US dollar trade, and then also the one slide here you'll see with the manufacturing. So there's actually the EVs. We know we usually give updates on electric vehicles, and what Delaware at least was doing with their mandate, but also looking at a global scale on that production. China is actually able to have a plant now in Turkey. It looks like $1 billion plan to start production for some of their EVs.
So again, it's been almost 2 years now. We are talking about global currency. In fact, I have the most notes from the global currency than any other topics.
Yeah.
Is because it's going to change the world. It's a huge change, and it's going to most likely impact us here in the US the most.
Yeah.
So now, regardless of what we did and what we didn't, this is happening. So the financial sanctions was one of the main reasons that pushed people to this, push countries to this.
Yeah.
So you can abuse the power. That's one. But now this is happening, and now one of the things that as we are discussing these things, we know that certain things we start a discussion and we know what's coming, and then that's why it's kind of good that we have everything on the record. So now all these things are happening, and we like actually, if you remember the database that we updated on our own, when we added Turkey, that time Turkey was not part of the discussion, but we said it's going to be in the discussion.
Yeah.
We should look into it, and now it is.
Yeah.
So there were 6 countries that were invited after the founders. Now Turkey is going to be the next, and I think among those, it's going to be one of the most important one, because this is not about just currency; it's about the financial system, and now it's pushing countries, when you corner them, it's pushing them to find different solutions. Now, what you mentioned with China, the BYD, it's actually investing $1 billion in Turkey. There's another company from Germany, another auto company, they're doing the same thing. These are all important. So, and this is probably happening because when the relationships are not so great, then you are going to look for alternatives.
Yeah.
So no one is going to die because you are not in a relationship with them. So this happened to us, which we mentioned in the past with the hospital systems.
Okay.
Well, we just opened our own surgery center. I want to send Christmas cards to Dr. Janice Neville every Christmas because of their approach on us. We have a surgery center which now they are building a second one.
Yeah.
So guess what would not happen if we were still working with them and providing some services at the surgical level?
Exactly.
That was not going to happen. So that's why countries like us here in the US should take their role very seriously. So it cannot be on the abusive side. It has to be reasonable. So then you can actually keep that going. So like in this office, just think about this way. Like a lot of things are already well defined in terms of our responsibilities. But there are things that are not in the writing, and it's not your responsibility. It's not Zala's responsibility. It's not Anne's responsibility, but we do it
Right.
because we care. But if we abuse our employees here, I don't think they would have the same approach, and they would just say, well, here's what I need to do. This is outside of my
Right.
scope,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, we do the same thing with our clients, with our physicians, with our patients. So this is about whoever has the upper hand that needs to be more reasonable.
Yeah.
So that's where we are actually missing the big big point. And I hope you don't have to pay this.
No, because if you're at risk of losing the upper hand,
Mhm.
you know, if too many countries obviously and switching, all of a sudden you're no longer in a place of power to say I'm going to sanction you because you know the majority may swing. So it's definitely a delicate issue, but as you were saying, it looks like Turkey's going to be the next and probably not the last. I would imagine other countries too, depending on their current state, on how their economy is doing. So speaking of economy and other financial issues, something here in the US we want to touch on in the news was actually the Medicare issue. And, you know, we've actually just given that example of the hospitals and different payers and whatnot with the insurance companies. So what's happening here with looks like 50 billion sort of charges that were being paid out to actually fictitious diseases. So I believe it was like HIV, AIDS, other diseases that patients are being diagnosed with, they actually really didn't have. That way they could actually upcharge.
So in the last 3 months, this is the second big news about the healthcare related fraud. If you remember with one of the ACOs, nationwide ACOs, they are being actually accused of something similar to this, overstating what your patient situation is, how sick they are. Why this is important is because insurances are being paid or paying based on the risk of the patient. Like if someone has higher risk of being having a heart attack, then they want to know that so that it can be prevented. And then there are diagnoses and the ACCs that determines how they should be paid. Now, someone who we spend like $10,000 from the insurance side, if their insurance risk ratio is 1, actual dollar amount spent versus the risk adjusted number is same because it's 10,000 and then the 10,000 with 1, that's 10,000. But if it is, let's say it's 1.2, so I have to use the calculator. So
Sure, go
so kind of so jet lags. If it's what did I say?
10,000.
10,000 how much?
1.2.
If it's at 1.2, right?
Yeah.
See, I've even forgot that. So that 10,000 would be adjusted, risk adjusted at $8,300. So this is on the ACO sides. If we are on a value-based agreement, the way that our payment is going to be based on our incentives on the expenses of the insurance. So then either we really need to cut the actual spend or we need to really capture the risk, right? So now you can cheat everything, right? So people and businesses do that, countries do that. So they can overstate the patient's risk scores. They can, I mean, you are a part of the daily case conferences and you know how much work we have to put in for the education of the nurses. What should be reported, what shouldn't be reported. And if we were saying that every patient with obesity are maybe like 1 BMI point higher, then we can qualify them for a higher risk score.
Yeah.
So that it's going to be less on the expenses. But then for this specific issue with Medicare Advantage, they are the middleman between us and Medicare. So they go to Medicare and they subcontract. Medicare subcontracts X amount of patients, and they come to the providers and then they manage them. So, but they have their own internal team, and that internal team reports back to Medicare on those patients. So that becomes a problem if you are doing that in different ways. Now, Medicare has its own issues. Like right now, for our MSSP program year 2023, there's a huge mistake Medicare made. And it comes from 2 codes. And I don't know, I don't think it's public. so I can get into the specifics, but now it delays our results for another 6 weeks. So we were not going to get our results for 8 months after the program year is over. Now, on top of that 8
Another
months,
2, yeah.
it's 6 more weeks. I'm going to age a little bit more this year than last year,
Yeah.
because we have to wait until October probably to see how we did last year.
Yeah.
So because it's a really important issue, these Medicare Advantages, these programs, they have to be extremely careful. Well, this is just simple, pure wrong.
Yeah, that's
That's why it's called fraud. I mean, mistakes can happen, but this is not a mistake.
Yeah.
50 billion is not a mistake.
That's a wild number. But yeah, so that's where you almost don't want to lose that trust in that middleman, because then potentially you'll have to have a new a workflow saying, no, now you need to have more frequent audits or another person overseeing this to make sure the accuracy is intact.
Now they're going to spend more money on those.
Right.
And why Medicare is extremely important is because it's supported by the federal dollars,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, and then that's our tax money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's also our money that we pay throughout.
So technically,
entire
we're
life.
paying.
We are, but we actually,
Our
Medicare,
benefit,
the
though.
federal government still needs to subsidize, because Medicare is a huge,
Sure.
in a huge red. So it's not so great.
Yeah.
It's traditionally not.
But I mean, regardless, I think any type of business or any line of business, you want to have that integrity on when you're doing these, especially obviously the financial aspect included. But even if it is just the quality of your work, what you're doing, you want to have obviously uphold integrity while doing so. So interesting to see what's actually going to play out with this $50 billion lawsuit.
Yeah.
See.
We'll see. Well, actually, it's still a lawsuit, right? So I don't think they're fine yet, but they will be fine most likely.
Yeah, or if there's a difference.
We'll find out.
So actually, our next topic we have is a little bit on the elections here. So starting with the presidential, there was actually a debate end of June that was actually raising a lot of flags of concerns for one particular party. So the Democratic Party was a little bit concerned. So we have our presidential election. We know as of right now, the two most likely candidates are Donald Trump for the Republicans and Joe Biden for the Democrats. However, as I just mentioned, there's concern raised with Joe Biden on whether or not he would actually end up being the Democratic candidate. One of the things I just want to point out here on one of the first slides is the point of, are these candidates for the people and who the people want, or is it who's giving the most funding and who the donors want their candidate to be? So I know we'll touch on a little bit later how George Clooney is actually the main voice saying he should step down.
They make a lot of money, so they can afford losing 30 million.
Right. So, but then that comes into the point where, is it because George Clooney was involved with raising the 30 million that what he says is more important than, say, 10,000 voters who only contributed $100 each?
So you had a text message on your WhatsApp from January from me.
Yes.
Right, January 2024. So I will never speak to anything if I don't have what I'm saying in writing, so that I can substantiate what I'm saying in writing. So there has to be some document. That's the political culture that I have, because everything should be on the patient's chart, and in business everything should be in writing. If you are going to promise someone that we are going to do X, Y, Z, or if we make some statements and if we think that's becoming a $25 bid, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So what did I say?
So Kemal prediction of Michelle Obama.
So it was more than Michelle Obama, right? So
Joe.
the reason it was for Michelle Obama because I knew that President Biden was having issues. You can see, I mean, how can you not see? He's 80 years old. How can you not see that?
Well, soon to be 82.
Well, that time.
But
He's been having those issues for a while now.
Sure.
So I come up with the alternative because there was a need for it. And then I sent another message either to you or to Anthony or to one of you. Gavin Newsom is another option. if Michelle Obama doesn't want to be in politics because she's comfortable, she made a lot of money, she can do what she would be able to do as a president. She can do it behind the scene, just like right now, President Obama is kind of doing a lot of things for President Biden. So now Gavin Newsom, maybe even a better name than Michelle Obama for Democrats. But I think they're kind of already a little bit too late. Now, remember what we discussed, what would happen to the dollar amounts that's being collected under Biden. So right now, only Kamala Harris is eligible to use them as a rollover.
Since she's part of.
Right, she's part of the unit. So that's a huge problem because we are talking about billions. Because everything that we see is just the individual numbers, but there's a PAC that actually supports these individuals, like candidates. So, like if you give $200 to Obama, that's what's being reported. But if you give 20,000 to the PAC, that's not yet reported. So that PAC money is much higher than the individuals. So they are anywhere from 900 to 1.2 billion. That much money, what's going to happen to that, right? So if it's not going to be used, so is that the reason maybe Biden wants to stay in the race? So if he's able to,
the big reason.
Well, it doesn't need it, but maybe who knows? But this is a huge problem.
I was gonna say, as you mentioned, is it too late? So I mean, you look almost middle of July right now. November is basically right around the corner in terms of campaigning, when people start years in advance. And that's even for elections on like our state level of somebody running for a district representative, they're starting years in advance. If you're talking about the president of the United States, you would want your campaign well underway years in advance, not all of a sudden, a few months before the election saying, actually, we're going to pull a 180 and all go support this instead. Everything we've said for the past year and a half, 2 years leading up to this is actually just going to scratch that. So definitely concerning, I guess, for the party.
There are some states, even Kamala Harris may not be qualified to run as a president, so then she may be racing with 47 states because each at the state level that's being determined. So I don't know which states they are, but there are some. They may not allow that to happen. So, which is a huge problem, but I think it's too late. So now, what actually broke this point for George Clooney is the debate, right?
Yep.
I think very poorly
that was
scrapped.
Yeah. So I think that was a big turning point for a lot of people who maybe were on the fence of the swing. There was just those people in the middle ground who actually sometimes do switch, term to term, who they're actually supporting. We do know there are the vast majority of people stick with whatever their party is, regardless of who the candidate may be. But having a public debate where all eyes are on these two candidates, that's basically saying, here it is, here's what I've got. And if you're not able to perform on at least satisfactory level, if not surpass people's expectations, it's very alarming.
So today is our first day in the studio, right? So everything was set up yesterday from the technical standpoint, but then we didn't do any meetings in this room. So I had my 12:30 meeting, which was a Zoom meeting here in this room, so I could just test if I was going to have any issues with the sound, with the video, fire, etc. So I don't know if they can hear it, but they can. So that was the first step, and then we find some problems, some issues. We set up everything, so we prepped for it, right? So fine, Biden is a 82-year-old, but then people around him, his campaign, they're not all 82 years old. They don't have the cognitive problems. Why did they not stop him to participate in that? It wasn't mandatory. Like he could just say, no, I don't want to be, or I can just have it in my own terms. So since he's not going to convince any Republican to vote for him, right? This is for his own people.
Yeah.
So why don't you just pre-record something?
Sure.
So then here's the interview with CNN. we answered all of your questions, and which he did like a week later, right, or a couple days later.
Yeah. The
And
post interview.
he's a different person. So, but it's a major, crucial mistake that already happened. The damage is already done. His own people are not supporting him, which is it's a huge problem.
Like I was mentioning, it's one thing to get the people who are on the fence of who do I want to go with, let me see who's gonna entice me more type thing. But if it's your own camp, that's almost, not saying a revolution or anarchy of or everything's going crazy, we can't trust, we don't believe we don't have the a legitimate chance at winning following this. That's alarming to, I mean, it's not like, that was discussed behind closed doors amongst these 6 people that they said. It's a public thing. So
it is so public that now everyone, again, none of these debates are convincing people from one party to the other. It's just convincing your own party where
you're the person for it.
So if you're going to go and vote for that person, so because if you look at the turnout, that's very low, right? So what made President Biden to win the last election is the number of people who showed up.
Mhm.
They didn't vote for the Republican, and now they're doing Democrat. That didn't happen.
Right.
That only happened because there were 30% of the Democrats were not voting. Now they're like, oh, we definitely don't want Trump for a second term. They went.
Mhm.
But now the other part is more motivated. So now you have to compete with that.
Right.
Because it was Trump's kind of like second term. He was the lead, and that made people a little bit lose on their motivation. So that's how you lose your own people.
And I think similarly, I mean, you look at everything on the other side of what Trump was going through in recent news with all the different trials, and we kept seeing his face with the negative connotation of in court for this, found guilty.
That only helped him.
That, but also his party not saying, "Oh my gosh, we have to abandon him," and like throw in the towel early on by kind of still supporting behind. It still gives a legitimate chance. Like you're saying that any publicity is good publicity type thing. To say, "Oh yeah, I had all these charges, and I'm still able to."
There's a little bit of bias in those legal actions that only makes the other side more stronger, because we love the underdog, right? So like if you are not a big tennis guy, but you have some from last year.
Familiar.
So okay, so if you have Novak Djokovic or if you have Roger Federer playing against our up, who are we going to support?
I'm going to support Al.
Right? Because we love the underdog.
Yes.
Because he needs the most support. Because he's in a disadvantage. So now he may think that he can beat them. Well, that's good for him, but we're going to support him anyway.
Yes.
We'll never be on the stronger side because there's that underdog mentality that's always the case. So you kind of, if you feel like that person is treated poorly or they're in a disadvantage, you're going to support them.
Yeah.
So
any type of entertainment.
So it wasn't personal, but
I don't think I'm that much of an
support.
underdog, to be honest. Come on, what?
We are supporting him.
Yeah. Give you 2.5 set handicap there up. But like you're saying, from the other side, nobody wants to see a crazy blowout of wow, this person didn't even score a single point. Like, was that entertaining? Like, no, it's like you want to see that competitiveness,
right?
Regardless of what it is. And also just here on the slides, for a successful campaign, like we're saying, what is the main draw? So yes, you need your funding, you need to have, here's my vision, my ideas, my policy. That's all part of your campaign. But I think the main factor is that image that you bring to the table on when people see your face.
Perception versus perspective.
Yeah.
That's how you are going to be pursued by others. That's what they're going to go for.
Yeah, I mean, that could be anything. If you're saying, if you look at some of the athletes of like, oh, like I think even you were saying like Tom Brady, like faced the New England Patriots as the quarterback of, this guy's reliable, he's known for being calm, collective in the pocket, doesn't have to go for a big crazy play all the time. He can manage the game well. It's like having that reputation. Once you see that, oh, I'm gonna associate, X, Y, and Z with this person based on what they've done in business, the success they've already had.
Do we not like him?
Yeah, I mean, Well, they're in the same conference as the New York Jets, so I would just say same division. So they're kind of a rival team. He beat them many a times in the past. But what I'm saying is like you see that, and all of a sudden he went to, I'm not sure if you follow football, but he went to a really lower team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they went and won the Super Bowl that next year. So taking a lower grade team and being able to win the whole championship just shows like they have that trust in him as the leader of say, I can bring this team to the championship and win it. So that's kind of what you see in candidates and what do they bring to the table for their own charisma.
We are all a little bit superficial. We make our opinion based on the book, based on the first impression.
Yeah.
Like imagine like if I go to one of the meetings with the prospect clients that is a sixth position in somewhere in New Jersey or somewhere downstate Delaware.
You're in sweatpants or something.
I'm in sweatpants, or I'm like I go with a beat up car and they see it because I'm gonna park right in their parking lot.
Yeah.
So would they really trust me with their finances or their future decisions? Well, he's not able to take care of himself, so it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So so this is all about the look is important, and it's not just physical look, but how you are presenting your company, your campaign, your yourself. So, and I think this is I think we're going to see in time, but it's not going to be so great for the Biden campaign. Now, one of the other thing that we discussed, again, you don't have to do it, right? So I was at the event at Turkish Embassy last Monday night.
So you have some pictures here, right?
This week is a little bit tough for us, for me, because I came back from Turkey on Saturday, and then have this event in DC, and then it's kind of like still jet lag. And there's the head of the parliament, there's the ambassador, which is one of the most powerful ambassadors among the Turkish ambassadors, either England or US. So because of the size of the company and the power, that's what your level is. So, and he's from my school, the ambassador. So we went there, and then there's one Azerbaijani channel, TV channel, asked me to have an interview. And I asked him what the topic is Biden and Trump, and who would be better for Turkish countries. So, and then I'm like, okay, so we talk about these in our events, so in our shows, it's not a problem. But she's like, oh, but we need to do it today. So, ain't gonna happen. So I need to prep. Ain't gonna happen. They didn't turn the AC on. Ain't gonna happen because I'm there for a different reason, so I don't have my full attention to that. And I'm not even sure if I was in the right setting there. So I just said, we'll do it later. So why did he have to do the debate? Right? You're not ready. Just don't go. Just do it in a different way from one of the channels like CNN or MSNBC, and they can ask you whatever you want to ask. Well, even I am like sometimes biased. If someone that I'm supporting is here, we don't ask them really tough questions. Like you don't corner them. But if you are not supporting them, and if you think that there's something wrong with them, we go after them in some cases. So this is that simple. So,
yeah, I think again, the reason that you're bringing this up is that image that you're going to be portraying on also your preparedness. So, I mean, you could argue that, oh, if he avoided it, that might even raise more issues of, well, why is he avoiding it? Is it something with his health? Is he sick somewhere? Like, obviously, you could go down any path, but I think in the other slide, like I was just showing earlier, if you look at, I think it was a 1960 debate, it was with JFK and Nixon. And see if I can find that video here again really quickly.
So that video you have on there, I'm looking for it. This is the time where TV was new.
Yeah, it was one of the first televised.
Radio was more popular, but go ahead.
Yep, but basically what we're trying to get at here is the fact that those who listened to the debate on the radio, like you're saying, was more popular and relied on at the time. TV was still new. Everyone who listened on the radio who only heard the audio thought that Nixon won the debate, had the way better answers, was more sound, I guess, in his responses. And those who watched on television thought that JFK won the debate because he looked comfortable. He looked like he knew what he was talking about. In the picture you'll see a little bit later, Nixon looked a little bit awkwardly seated, like his legs were kind of like bent inward. Yeah, it was like bent inward. He was wiping his nose with the handkerchief, whereas JFK was, properly sitting upright, has legs crossed, smiling, well put together. So there's the comparison right there. You'll see.
And it's the one may sound better, but if they don't look better, that's
right. So that's like, don't want to judge a book by the cover, but that is what sells. Like you're saying, that first impression is obviously very important, and how you come across to people. So they say, "Oh wow, this guy looks like he knows what he's talking about," even though what he might have been saying wasn't up to par with what Nixon was saying. It's what that image he's portraying. So, like you're saying, for that interview, you wouldn't want to be put on the spot, but you have no idea what questions are going to be thrown at you. You don't know who's even asking them. Who's the audience that you're going to be answering for?
So, what did we do after that? We look at the channel, we look at the other things, and if that's something that we want to be participating. So those, you always have the luxury of saying no. Hey, we'll do it later. So we'll do it when you're ready. So, right. So what's our next?
Our last thing, yeah. So again, as we said, we're going to give you the updates on the elections, and that does include the local ones here in Delaware. So specifically with the governor, Bethany, all along. So you have a few updates here. I think the most important thing that you want to touch on is the fact of the endorsement.
Well, she is endorsed by the Democratic Party for Delaware for the governor race. So that's huge for us. She is going to be a great governor. I know that. But I want to actually kind of revisit some of the issues and how the world that we live in can be unfair, especially for those who don't have the same place or same position. So we're going to kind of get into that. I met Bethany 4 years ago, I believe. And then since then, periodically we talk, and then I become her co-chair for campaign end of December and January. So one thing that I see now, people who know me, they know that I'm a pretty dominant guy. So from the perception standpoint, if you don't know me, you may actually judge me based on my actions, my look. But what I see is I have two sisters, and they're in business. I always try to look at the world from their perspective and what they go through, what they have to go through, and what they have to do to survive. So that gives me a great responsibility to make sure that I don't lose that sight. So being a woman, I guess, still is a big challenge in even in the countries like the United States. So you can be on supportive roles, but when it comes to ruling, then the traditional media attacks you. So why I'm saying that here that like three names that we have: Bethany Holland, Matt Meyer, and there's Colin O'Mara, right? So one woman against two men, and the only bad publicity is coming for Bethany and for things that are common practice, and this is just wrong. And I think the journalists should take better responsibilities, better approaches, and be more objective. Fine, if you have great kind of lead on some news, go for it. But if you are being unfair, then you have to really just stop and just do the right thing. So we have the issues now. So like my younger sister is in charge of the status of women in society. That's something like that. I can translate now, but you can maybe look at it. So she works with the Minister of Family and Social Services, and the way that this is happening is there is the concept of equality. So we know biologically one is better than the other. Well, depending on what it is. So but if you just look at the physical advantages, who can run faster, who can lift heavier, who can do X, Y, Z, who can play better tennis, who can play better football, who can swim better. So Leah Thomas. So all these we know, right? But this is not about being equal, but this is about having equal opportunities. So someone who, among these three candidates, who has the best background, best CV, best experiences, is being attacked just because she's a woman, just because they think that they can do that to a woman, and that is wrong. So this is whoever is the journalist works for, they should take an action on this because this is simply wrong. So someone give more money than they should, and then at the end of the quarter, there is a reconciliation process, and then it's a common practice for all campaign around the United States. So they would actually refund them, right? So no, I mean this journalist who said, I mean, I'm not gonna, just because this is our business channel, otherwise I was gonna use something for him, but you can just put anything in beep. So he's just being so rude. And I know this is just pure sexist. And because of that, I know that I am gonna put even more support for Bethany's campaign. And also make sure that we reach out to more people so that this is not hurting someone. So there's this new poll that just came out, and I just learned about this a couple of days ago, and then I'm like, how is this legally allowed? So they are putting it as a way that so it's you can do this in so many, you can conduct these types of things in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You can just simply ask them, who do you want to vote for? Then you say, well, I'm going to go with Sean, I'm going to go with Susan. Then once you say Susan, then you're like, well, what if she embezzles money? Would you still vote for her? And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go with Sean. That is the result of this last poll. So, and people who supposed to be representing us, supposed to be honest, they are actually publishing these things. This is just so shameful. And I think it's shameful for Ned Meyer, it's shameful for whoever's participating in this. But one thing that they shouldn't forget, she is the most qualified person who's running for this race: healthcare, education, business, running the government. She's the lieutenant governor of this state for the last 8 years. So she has the right background for what this requires. So we don't want some dreamer with no background and lies on his own CV. He says he's a diplomat, though he was doing business, like, you know, and it's still on his website. He lies publicly. So hey, well, can you just stop lying? Or those who are actually promoting him, can you guys stop participating in these lies, because this is misleading public. So actually she's going to be in our in-person meeting next week, the one in Newcastle, for like 15 minutes or so. We are all here for Bethany. We are supporting her fully, and we'll do even more. Our signs will be up on the next door building. So Bethany is the right choice for the state of Delaware, and that's what we believe in. So, and we'll bring those other issues, those other problems. We are open to discuss the issue. No one is shying away. But just because someone brings up some stupid thing doesn't mean that I have to participate in that. So by just responding to that is that they're already winning the participation. So I'm not going to do that. So, but they should have a little bit more responsibility, honestly.
Yeah, and I think regardless of anything that you're looking at or evaluating, always have to do your own due diligence on it, because there's always there always is bias in anything that you look at. Somebody obviously has their opinion, even if it's subconscious, it's hard to even sometimes hold that back whenever you present your findings, even if you're trying to be as independent as possible. So definitely look at, is it peer reviewed? Who's the one conducting it? Is it, a blind study where you don't know who you're reaching out to, or is it, is there placebos, anything?
So that's important. So people have to do their own research. Don't believe everything that you see. Do your own due diligence. So they have some issues here probably.
Might be a cat in a tree.
Yeah. So we are hearing a lot of fire. So all right. Well, I think that's all we have for today. I'm glad that we are able to be back with a new episode, and then we'll have a lot of new guests coming up in the next 2 months.
Yeah, into the summer.
So it's going to be fun.
So, all right.
Thanks for being with us.